To you, everybody. Good day to the seven continents of the world: Antarctica, Australia, Europe, Africa, Asia, North America, South America. 7 billion people in seven continents. Yes, welcome to Atlantic Discuss. My name is Ade Balogun. I'm still your host and moderator. Some of you call me moderator, some call me the host. It really doesn't matter. We judge, we discuss. That's why it's Atlantic Discuss. We have our opinion. Our guests do have an opinion. This is the final in the three-part series of failed state, collapse state, weak state, causes and indicators Nigeria as a focal point. And we've spoken to Professor Odinkalu, we've spoken to Pastor Ita. Today we have another erudite scholar, one of the best, forthright like the Northern Star. We have Senator SHEHU SANI. Senator, welcome to Atlanta Discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. So, as you all know, let me just do a brief intro. You all know he's a former senator, but once a senator, always a senator. You know, he's an author, a playwright, and human rights activist. He's the president of the Civil Rights Congress of Nigeria, that's the CRCN, and the chairman of the Hand in Hand Africa. He was a leading figure in the struggle for the restoration of democracy in Nigeria. Everybody knows that he did a lot. He has been arrested and jailed by successive and past military regimes in Nigeria. He was released from life imprisonment when democracy was restored in 1999. He contested and won the Kaduna Central Senatorial District on the platform of APC on March 28, 2015. So I'm sure you all agree with me that more than anybody is in a good position to tell us what a failed state, what a collapsed state, what a weak state is, especially Nigeria as a focal point. He has fought for the liberation of Nigeria. So, Senator SHEHU SANI, welcome to Atlanta Discuss once again. So, before we go ahead, it's important to add that here we embrace all facets of humanity in all our discourse. We try and disseminate positive news in the world filled with a lot of bad news. We give a voice to the unheard always. We balance the information equation. We search and discuss the facts wherever it leads. We combine the best of the human race to get the best out of mankind. Most importantly, we serve as a bridge between the developing and the developed world. We embrace business, politics, IT, faith-based issues. We just don't shy away from the facts. So that's why we go for the jugular. Now, the first question is, it has to do with the topic. Failed state, collapsed state, weak state, causes and indicators Nigeria as a focal point. In your own words, sir, what are the difference between the failed state, collapsed state, and weak state?
Thank you for having me in your program. It is an honor, and I wish to congratulate you for sustaining this discourse and providing the platform for people to make meaningful contribution. Well, my own understanding of what a failed state is simply to pinpoint to a failed state, which is something like Libya, Sudan, and Somalia. A failed state has no government. A failed state has no control of people who are outside the rim of the state. A failed state is a chaotic state, one that has no authority, no laws, and virtually no power. And that is a state almost like is on autopilot, with warlords exercising control from different parts of the country, occupying territories and then asserting their own form of authority. And there are no better state nations that you can actually point to that kind of symptoms or characteristics than these three states, which are very close to us here. Well, a weak state has a collapsed state is not very far from a failed state. Is one that has government in place, but the government does not have an overwhelming control on the situations in the country, and that is a collapsed state. But there will certainly be some elements and figures that will say these are the leaders, and there is some certain level of control in some parts of the country. A weak state is almost an improved version of a collapsed state. And I believe that if I'm going to be fair to us, I can't call us a failed state. I cannot call us a collapsed state. I will call us a weak state. Because if you look at what is happening in the country, despite the terrorism, the violence, the banditry, and the killings going on, and overwhelming parts of the country, there are still civil authorities and in control of the levers of state for now. But that does not mean that a weak state cannot upgrade itself or downgrade itself to a collapsed state and then to a failed state. If you look at Zamfara state for now, Zamfara has a governor, has local government chairman, and they have commissioners, members of state assemblies, and representation, and elections do take place. But there are parts of the state where virtually spaces that are controlled by bandits and terrorists. So it's not the whole state. In Kaduna state too, Kaduna is a state divided into 3 senatorial zones: the northern, the central, and the southern Kaduna. But there are local governments, parts of local governments where the terrorists are holding control. They impose fines and levies on farmers. And they are also, the farmers there, the villages there pay allegiance to those terror groups. And sometimes also you find that the villagers end up calling one terror group to protect them against the other. So it happens. So you can see in our country, we have an evident symptoms of a weak state, and there are traces of both a collapse and also a failed state. Those things we can see within our country. So I can say that this is the stage which we are in now, but as we have an option as a country to either improve on our security, protect our people, let the rule of law take its course, and then do what we need to do as far as the constitution of our country impose on us or recommends on us or dictates on us to do. So then we can now have our country back. But for now, we seems to be a weak state moving to a collapsed state from the indications we are seeing. So, and I hope that for listeners, this will give them an idea of my own thinking of where we are.
Thank you very much, sir. That's very impressive. I like that personally. Nobody has put it in that perspective like you did. So that we learn every day. Now, for someone that has paid a lot of sacrifice, except the supreme sacrifice, which is that you are still alive. I'm sure you've been close. You've had a lot of close shaves there. I've followed you for a very, very long time. From your activities, the activism, the coup issue and all that. You are even in prison when democracy came back in 1999. I want to ask you, I mean, even being a senator in the Third Republic, are you happy with the way the Third Republic is going from 1999 till date? Because, I mean, I read about when you became senator, how things went south in Kaduna, the governor and the 3 senators, how, the people lost control and Governor Rufai had his way and all that. So my question really is, are you happy with the way the Third Republic is going? Considering during the Second Republic, we had issues in Anambra and Edo that led to the military coming back. So we know nobody wants the military clearly, but I'm asking you now, are you happy with the way the Third Republic is going?
Well, it's important for the sake of history that we remind the younger ones, because I read somewhere recent statistics say that 6 out of 10 Nigerians have no experience of military rule, which means that 60% of Nigerians were born after 1999. And from the figures I have had, from 1999 to date, we doubled our population. I think in 99 we were almost about 119 million. Now we are 220. So it means that Nigeria increased by 100 million people in 24 years. So for the younger ones who don't know much about history, because when most people, I meet them along the way, especially younger people, they say, oh, you are SHEHU SANI that we used to see on Twitter and this and that. That's their own idea of who we are with social media. But they need to know that this democracy was a product of our struggle. We fought for it. We sacrificed our life for it. There were many people who were killed. There are many people who were sent to jail, and many were forced to exile. So we don't need anyone to lecture us about democracy because we stood at the time when many couldn't, and we spoke at the time when many couldn't, and we paid our dues as freedom fighters who stood up in the defense of justice, freedom, and democracy. But the question is this what we fought for? Certainly, it was not, and it cannot be. Our idea of a nation after a military rule is that we'll have a democratic state where people can be voted for and they can vote, and there will be rule of law, and the constitution will be the guiding principles of the state, and that there will be a nation of our dreams where people will unite and people will benefit from the dividends of democracy. But in the last 24 years, we have seen a systemic erosion of democratic values. And all those negatives, all those incivilities that we fought under the military rule have now found themselves even at a larger scale under a democratic setting. And I think the mistake could be our own. In the 90s, from the 80s to the 90s, many of those, the old guards, Bekoran Sankuti, Gani, Falana, Olisa Abakoba, and student union leaders, labor activists, and even members of the media, the progressive media, who were in the forefront of that struggle. When the time came for the nation to transit to civil rule, we refused to embrace the reality that we should keep aside our own notion of activism and struggle and transform ourselves into a political party and take over power. This was what the ANC did in South Africa after the liberation struggle. The ANC transformed into a political party, reached out to the people, seek for votes, then took over power. But in our own case, I think led by Gani, either many of us don't believe that democracy will last, or we were still within that Aluta mentality, and for whatever reason, we refuse to embrace the transition program, insisting on government of national unity, sovereign national conference, and so many things, and giving all sorts of conditionalities to the military, while the political class who never fought for democracy, who were simply even part of the military, they simply organized themselves into political parties and then took over state power. It took 3 years or 4 years into the democratic experience before Gani now decided that he wants to contest for the presidency under NCP. And he ended up with about 150,000 votes. Then later, Falana tried to contest for the governorship of Ekiti State, and then it didn't turn out fine. Many of us tried later, but by the time we came to the field, already the field has been taken over and occupied by the forces who did not fight for that democracy. So the democracy was hijacked by them, or they made, at least it was the likes of Bola Tinubu. There was a meeting we had in is it Gani Chamber or somewhere, where there was a decision, should we participate in the transition program or not? And I can remember at that time, Tinubu said, if we don't participate, then who is going to take over power? Should we leave power for them? And that he is going to participate. And then many of us now started calling those who decided to participate as traitors, who wants to join, blah, 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 blah. But now Later, everything now went their own way. Many of us tried to emerge as elected political leaders. It became impossible. Many tried to contest for the presidency, the Senate. For me, I contested about 2 times. It was in the 3rd time that I won. And by the time I won, I was in the seat. Then they now saw me a threat. The person who happens to be the governor at that time see me as someone who doesn't share much in common with him. And then we started our own battle. So how can you look at this democracy and say it's what we fought for? Nobody will go to jail for a democracy where there is no rule of law. Nobody could have gone to jail for a democracy where elections are rigged. Nobody could have gone to jail for a democracy where votes do not count, where Nigerians are treated as second-class citizens in their country. Nobody could have gone to jail where you can't go to court and get justice. So you have seen all those bars, pillars, or ingredients, all those components, those ideals, components that form the whole of democracy have all been desecrated. So I can tell you that this is not what we fought for. But the danger of this is that, you see, if you suffocate a democracy, which we are doing now, when people cannot contest election and win based on what the law says, if they can't go to court and get justice, then you are virtually strangulating or asphyxiating the democracy itself. And what will happen is that either the whole country collapses or the democracy collapses, or virtually there may be something that may come up which may be unpalatable to everyone. Now, if you look at what is happening in West African sub-region, what took place in Guinea, Conakry, was all centered on elections. What took place in Mali, it was election. What took place in Burkina Faso and Niger, it was election. When elected leaders who got to power through the means of the constitution now stepped on those constitutions, desecrated the constitution, and now imposed themselves, they are not different from military rulers. And that is why, if you look at Nigeria's history, whenever you see military stepping in to take over power, it's all about the rigging of election, the desecration of the judicial system, and also the desecration of rule of law. So I cannot, for all sake, look at what we have all gone through and say, this is what I have delivered. So to me and to many, I think we should only satisfy our conscience that we fought for our country, we fought for the freedom of our country, but not to say that what came afterwards is what we were anticipating as a democracy. But we have civil rule, but civil rule has an option. It either goes back to the democratic system or it will crash and collapse at the end.
Thank you very much, sir. I was actually going to ask you whether Nigeria is a failed state, but you answered that in your previous analysis. You said it's a weak state that could be a collapsed state in the future. And it is clear that if a weak state collapses, eventually becomes failed state. So I think the consensus is that things are not going too well. And if we don't do something about it, it will get very, very bad. So I'm going to go into solutions proper now. I mean, I've spoken to people, some of which I'm sure you know, they're all human rights activists one way or the other, like yourself. One of which was Dele Farotimi. He said, we cannot vote away the problem. And I'm sure the reason why I said that is that the people's votes don't count because the people do not pick their leader. He did not say more than that. So the solution is clearly not by election because the votes don't count. Well, Professor Wakobia said we should put pressure on our legislators, like we put pressure on them. They will enact laws that will be good for the people and the country. You know, a lot of people don't agree with that, but that's what he preferred. Professor Dikalu said, historically, and I think you said something close to that historically, something we give. I think what you said was that if democracy either reverts back to rule of law or everything goes bust, you know. Then Professor Ito said, the people need to sit down. 774 local government, very multi-ethnic, multi-diverse, multi-religious, that the people must sit down to talk. So I'm asking, what do you think? What's your own solution in the ensuing melee?
You see, when people try to pin their hopes on the legislature to change the country or to move the country forward, I think you need to know that the legislators there are also Nigerians. And the legislature is not simply about the building, it's about the people who are there. What kind of people are there? How do they find themselves in that position of authority? Now, when you look at the Senate, there are 109 people, and they are called senators. But if you now go deeper, what they share in common is that they were all elected into office. But how were you elected into office? And what was your mission there in that place? That is the issue. Can you now, as a citizen, simply pick up any political party, fill up the form, paste poster, and say you are contesting for the Senate, and then expect, because you are a nice person, people should take you, vote you there? It doesn't. The process is as bad as the result. Now look at it. There are people who went to the Senate because they could not be governors. So the Senate is not their own major focus. So they can spend 4 years there because that is not their own interest. There are people who went to the Senate because the Senate was zoned to their own part of the state. There are people who went to the Senate to warm the seat for the governor to finish his term and then come and take over that seat. There are people who went to the Senate because the governor wants to send someone there who is not intelligent, who will not outshine him outside of that state. And there are people who simply found themselves in the Senate for the fact that they simply need to be there to answer the name of senators. And they shared money, and then they were simply voted into office. So you ask yourself, why is it when you look at the TV, you see senators sitting down? They are all called senators, but how you find yourself in that very seat matters a lot. If you had a godfather who sent you to the Senate, all your positions, your opinion, your presentation will be in line with what that godfather wants. And so how do you expect that kind of person to bring anything that would change the country? There are people who are in the Senate warming the seat for a governor to finish his term. So they are not there to raise any motions or any bills. For the formality, they are just there, and then that's all. So, and Nigerians are more interested in who becomes the president of the country. It's after either they won or lose the presidency, now they now start thinking of who is going to be the Senate. But this seat, the Senate is more important than the presidency. Because the presidency cannot perform oversight function on the Senate. It's the Senate that can perform oversight function on the presidency. The president cannot remove senators, but senators can remove the president. The president cannot stop the activities of the Senate, but the Senate can stop the activities of the presidency. So when you look at it in terms of powers, in terms of capacity, in terms of authority, when you have a bad Senate or bad National Assembly, including both House of Reps, you have a bad country. If you have an option, we have a bad president and a good National Assembly, it's better to have a bad president with a good National Assembly, because they will save the country. When you have a good president and a bad National Assembly, when you have a good president and a bad National Assembly, they become rubber stamp. Everything. That's why now Buhari, when you ask him about how the CBN was looted, he will tell you that he has no house in Abuja. When you ask him how the nation's debt has piled up, he says he's a man of integrity and honesty, and his record is clean. So, but all this destruction of this country in the last 8 years under Buhari's regime was done with the signature, with the consent, with the approval, and with the knowledge of the National Assembly. So, if we are going to get this country right, actually, we need to have a strong civil society, one that will perform both oversight function on the legislature and the executive themselves. But the civil society of today is different from the one we have during military rule. Nowadays, you see them in 5-star hotel, organizing 2 to 3 day conferences, collecting per diem, checking in for 2 to 3 days room, coming out with communique that nobody reads, and then nothing. When it comes to even protest even done like a project is from 8 to 11. They arrive at Unity Fountain, and then they march to the National Assembly, and then you see them holding can of juice, and then iPad, taking selfies with policemen, and then with girlfriends holding each other, and then moving. Now, how do you change? The only thing we have seen now that shook the foundation of India was the NSAS protest. It was young people. The NSAS protest was the only protest that overshadowed the June 12 protest of 1993, where masses of Nigerians came out in defiance of military rule. So this one happened, and it shook the foundation of this country. If we continue on this line, suffocate the whole democratic process, people will have no option than to be on the street and demand for a revolution. Because where democracy for revolution is the next answer. And revolution is not simply about people picking up arms. That is the extreme. But people have to come out to the street first. Because it's only when people are disunited, when people are submissive, when people are in the mode of saying that tomorrow will be better and not doing something about today, that you will see tyranny and repression and our democracy being desecrated continuously. So I believe that we must take seriously the election of our leaders. And now those in the position of power have made elections so impossible, where candidates have to pay millions of naira to win party primaries, where candidates have to share money for every electorate to vote for him, where after you have won election, you have to go to court to spend money for the tribunal, spend money for appeal, spend money for at the Supreme Court, all in an attempt to get justice and justify a position. I can say that with the reports and the impression the judiciary has created for itself today, I think our democracy has reached the end of the close for now. Because if people cannot be elected freely, if people cannot go to court and get justice, if there is no respect for rule of law, then we cannot call ourselves a democratic state. Because it reached a point today where governors are putting their own children as judges, as members of House of Reps, as members of House Assembly, as commissioners. They are also handing over power to their stooges who will do their bidding. So you can see a dynasty is created in the legislature, in the executive, and in the judiciary. So if you have this kind of dynasty, you have tyranny, you have dictatorship, and then you have no democracy. So this is the point which our democracy has reached a point today. There is no way you can rescue a democracy now if it is so suffocated, where people who are in position have made it impossible for any other person not from their own court to emerge as leaders in this country. So this is the situation in which we are now. We are only waiting for explosion. And if this explosion happens, it's going to be worse. We have been through these things here in 1983. We have been through it. We have been through it in several times in our history. When you push the democracy to the wall, it will break the wall and the room will collapse. So they are pushing this democracy to the point that it's going to grant to a halt. This is where we are.
That looks to me that you picked the Odinkan option. That so historically something will give eventually. So and that's also our position on Atlantic Discourse. That's how we call it discourse. Because some of these things we also have an opinion and a view about it. But I want to ask you this. From 1999 till date, we have had President Obasanjo, a statesman. There's nothing, no matter what anybody says about it, it's a statement, internationally renowned and all that. Subsequently, we have President Yaradua, then President Jonathan, then right now, then we had Buhari for 8 years, then now Tinubu. Now, I have to ask you, in the last, from 1999 till now, that's not the public, so to say, do you think we have had any real opportunity to actually avert all the things that are happening today? I mean, I would say maybe under Obasanjo, do you think with a little bit of foresight or effort on his part, a lot of these things could have been averted?
First of all, I believe we had a lot of missed opportunity. Obasanjo being a former president, a war commander, a former political prisoner, there was so much expectation of him to do a lot, which of course a lot was done, but a lot was left undone. Yaradua started in a good note, and the foundation of it is that he was determined to reform our electoral laws. You see, if we don't have an electoral system where good leaders can be elected into office, we're just wasting our time. We must have a system, because a state is run by leaders. And how do those leaders emerge? If a university lecturer cannot fill a form, political party form, go and contest election, and that he has to have a trailers of money to share to win party primaries ticket, and then share money to spaghetti and chicken noodles to people on the line to vote for him, or plates of jollof rice. This is the kind of leaders that emerge. If our leadership recruitment system is corrupted, what else are you looking for? So Yaradua tried in that aspect, but he failed. But because he died, and then everything then went off. Jonathan Goodluck set a good example, because he's the only one who can do what he has done. And I don't see the possibility of anyone doing it. I have repeated it. Jonathan did 4 things which no Nigerian can do. One is that he appointed an INEC chairman whom he never met and he never knew. That is one. Secondly, he invited the opposition to bring a nominee into the Electoral Commission. He invited Buhari, send your nominee to be an INEC commissioner. Which president, even Buhari, the so-called man of integrity, has he ever tried that? No, he has not. Jonathan is the only president who agreed and adopted an electronic voting system that evicted him out of power. Who will do that? Jonathan is the only president who disagreed with the outcome of election, but went ahead and congratulated leader because for peace to reign. Who will do that in this country today? People are saying 2023 election is bad, but at least we have seen where the opposition has won election. Labour has won in Abia. In Kano, they have won, but they are not trying to steal from them. PDP has won in Plateau and in Zamfara State, and the courts are now rolling these things over. But you ask yourself, I think if care is not taken, years to come, we will look back and say we wish we were here, because things seems not to be going well. Things seems to be going the other side. President Bola Tinubu is supposed to be very different, but the fact that he was among those who fought for democracy, he was one of the leaders. He was one of those who were forced to exile. He was one of those whom we were in the trenches in the years. The expectations on him are very high. Someone who comes from that lineage is expected of him to dust his books, those things we fought against, those things we fought for, those people who are part of that struggle. Even if it was APC that brought him to power, it was not APC that brought him to prominence, that brought him to where he's at. He was in the field of the struggle. Nadeku was there. Alliance for Democracy was there. All this fight started from at a certain point in the history of Nigeria. By this time, we should be talking about restructuring the country. We should be talking about diversifying the economy. We should be talking about recovering the looted money that was stolen under Buhari administration. But it appears that we are at a point where other issues are of emphasis. Nigerians are told to make sacrifices. All subsidy is withdrawn, and there is so much hardship anywhere. But the people who looted the treasury under Buhari administration, they are all there with their loots. MFLA is in prison. But what about others? Who were others that worked with him? Where are the cabals? Where are they? Where are the Buhari ministers? Where are all those people who contributed in wrecking the central bank? Where are they? So we have to be very careful. If President Ahmed Bola Tinubu wants to succeed as a president of this country, he must be ready to disappoint those who brought him to office. He must be ready to disappoint those who were part and parcel of the destruction of this country. He must be ready to work with those people who will build this country, who will lead this country to the future. If we don't, if we fail this opportunity, we will simply be moving from one pipeline to, they say there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it appears that every time in Nigeria, when you go to the end of the tunnel, you see another tunnel. That's what we have been moving from one tunnel to another from 99 up to today, 24 years inside the tunnel. So if we have to get out of this tunnel, we must do things differently. Even if he has gotten to power in a manner in which the credibility is being challenged, but he's still in control of levers of power, and he will do that for the next 3.5 years now. It's an opportunity for him to get things right. Erdogan was there. He was elected in a manner in which the credibility of it was questioned, and he said he's going to reform the electoral laws, and he must do it. So let us see changes happening in this country where people will be safer, where people will be more united, where people will look at now and say today is better than what we are, where we come from. This is my own view.
You are a foundation member of APC because you became senator when they came in 2015. And
Yes.
You've also spoken highly of President Jonathan, the way he ceded power, the transparency and all that. Now, 8.5 years down the line, I mean, it's clear to all that APC has not done well. I think Buhari is the personal opinion now, and we all agree in our editorial level that Buhari is arguably, not even arguably, the worst president we've had, especially in the democratic 8 years. And because right now, Nigeria is using more than 90% of what it's earning just to service debts and all that. And you have also said that there's a lot of looted money that President Bola Tinubu has to recover. Reference has also been made by everybody, including you, that yes, the president came in under very spurious circumstances, then the certificate forgery and all that are all packages that bring him out. Now, the issue now is it normal? Is it to expect from President Tinubu, for example, to do the right things, considering everything that's traversed the whole system, the corrupted APC, 8 years of Buhari, the non-transparent election, 350 billion naira down the line, nothing to show for it, despite all the technological investment. And President Tinubu also, we all know the judiciary has been a major disappointment, nothing was done properly. So my question really is it right to expect anything positive with the way things are, especially from this present government? They are not actually towing the path. You have said, and I'm going to echo it for you also, that the people have been told to live in very austere times, cut their coat according to their laws. But the government is wasting money on frivolous things, yachts, cars for first lady and all that. So we have not seen, and I'm sure you agree with me to a larger extent, that we have not really seen any policy or any direction, any focal line to show that the government of the day will do the needful. So why do you think there should be any positive expectation? Is it just because President Bola Tinubu was part of the democratic struggle? Or you think maybe tomorrow things will change? The direction is not looking good, yeah.
You see, there are people who in history have come to power through war and they transform their country. There are people who come to power through coup and they transform their country. There are people who come to power even through killing a president and they transform the country. So not even rigging election. But the point is that coming to power is one thing, and then governing the country is another. Now he is the president of Nigeria, whether the election was rigged or not. That's a factual matter. Mm-hmm. So if we can, do we now continue to harp on the election that has been done and it has gone through the court and whatever, and then not talk about governance? Or should we now talk about governance and the future of the country? For me, I think we are done with the election issue and we are taking our lessons out of it. And the opposition is not blameless for the emergence of Tinubu. They refuse to unite. Obi has 6.1 million votes. Atiku has 6.7 or 6.8 or 6.9. And Okonkwo has 1.4. That is about 14 million votes. So 2023 election was more of the opposition to be blamed for their disunity. And you cannot blame Tinubu for taking advantage of that disunity and for emerging the president. The point is that even if the election was rigged, there was no way the three leaders could have come together and for that election to be rigged in the favor of Tinubu. So you see, the problem is the opposition caused the problem where we have found ourselves today. That is why. For Tinubu himself, whether he will succeed or he will fail, is a product of the implementation of the program and agenda he set for himself. And who are going to implement the program and agenda? And they're the kind of people he brought into power. But I can understand when you find yourself in the position of power as a politician, not now as an activist, you will be morally obliged to bring in people who helped you to emerge as a leader. And in most cases, most of those who helped you either are people who helped you because they wanted protection after you are out of office, or when you are in office, or people who helped you because they are also investing because they want to be part of the government that you are going to form. In most cases, when you find yourself in a position of a leader, you look left and right and find out that almost most of the people that helped you to be there, in fact, don't share your vision, but they stood by you when you were struggling to be. They funded you and they sacrificed a lot to see you there. That's why you see he ended up appointing so many governors into there. Not that the governors have anything to contribute, because many of them have failed in their state. But first of all, they were the ones who stood by him, who fought for him, who made sure that he won. And it is a natural thing. And for example, now you want to marry, and there are two women. One is she's ugly, but when you are struggling as a young man, she stood by you, she fought for you, she sacrificed so much things for you, and then by the time you emerged, And now she's saying, let's tie the knot. But already when you emerge, you also met a very beautiful woman whom you like to present in everywhere. So the questions are before you. Either you marry the ugly woman who helped you to be there, or the beautiful woman that you have just met. And that's why I didn't say in general cases, but that's why in most cases, when people are polygamous, you will see that the younger wives are more beautiful than the older wives, because this time around he has money, he has time to pick from and select in terms of breed. But the other time is the one who stood by him. But when you're talking of moral beauty, she is that one that stood for you when you are in need. So he now has perhaps people of questionable character who supported him, who worked hard for him to emerge as the president of the country. But he now have good people who were not with him or didn't support him or were even opposed to him. So the question he has to, for him, is that he has to balance. If you say you're going to run this country based on people who helped you to be there, then you will not be much different from. That's why you see when people are campaigning, they are full of ideas, they are full of vision, they have solutions to all the problems of the country. But by the time they emerged, and now they have to work with people who help to destroy the country, you find out they're finding themselves in a confusion. Look at Buhari before 2015. If Buhari stands in a podium to speak about Nigeria's problem, you find that this is a magician who has a solution to all the problem. But by the time he found himself there, and he has, as an opposition leader, he blamed the ills of the whole country to 16 years of PDP rule. Then he found himself a president now with the campees from PDP of that 16 years of military rule who are with him and who he has to appoint them into political position. So that is what you find yourself. So as for Tinubu now, if Tinubu wants to get this country back on track, he should be ready to step on toes. He should be ready to sacrifice his even life for the future of this country. All that is said about a leader can be cleaned. The impression of people of a bad leader can change if they start seeing positive results. If Nigeria starts seeing security in this country, those who are even opposed to Tinubu will start supporting him. If Nigeria starts seeing employment opportunities created for young people, the opinions will change. If Nigeria starts seeing our debt profile going down, our economy improving, and we are regaining our prestige in the global community, people will change. A bad man can change to a good man if he does the right thing and the good thing he needs to do. But if you continue to appease those people who are part of past destruction in this country, you will simply go down the drain. So the options are before him. And he either takes the side of the country and his future, or he now plays by the political game of carrying these people along, which of course they have nothing to contribute. They are part and parcel of the problem. And then you will not be like any other president that has led this country.
Interesting. So, but you said something about the opposition not working together. I did a quick mathematics. Yeah. 6.1, 6.8, and they had well over 14 million. So clearly they could have won. But my question is this: after 8 years of Buhari, I mean, we know that it's not in the constitution that president goes north and south. It's not enshrined there, but there's an unwritten principle there that when the northerner is president for a while, it comes down to the south. One of the things I worked against with Jonathan at that time. Do you think that former Vice President Atiku, who was the presidential candidate of PDP at that time, should not have competed in the spirit of that unwritten rule of a southern president?
Well, let me tell you the point is that I'm a believer in the principle of rotation of power. 8 years to do it, but 8 years not. But you see, because of our Kaduna politics, I found myself out of the APC and then I was in the PDP. And I cannot imagine myself in a political party and then supporting the candidate of another party. It doesn't make sense to me. And as such, I'm in a party I'm supposed to support my own candidate. That is how it's supposed to be. But in the general sense of it, Buhari was not ready to hand over power to a southerner, because if he was, he could have been very categorical in his statement that no northerner should contest election within this party. But look at the last days, the intrigues that happened. Ahmed Lawal was their candidate, not Tinubu. So they try everything possible, but because they have a determined opponent who has his Emile Khan philosophy, and then he backed it up and then did everything possible because he was part of the system. And then he emerged. He didn't emerge because Buhari wanted him. They wanted their own to be. So to me, the emergence of a southerner in the 2023 election is a blessing to this country, because if it has been a northerner that has won the election, it's going to be a serious threat to national unity in such a way that one side will be seen to be dominated. And that's why I think that even if it was Buhari's 8 years that created that kind of issues, because as far as the PDP is concerned, they say within the setting of their own party, the last president was a southerner, and as such they need to have a northerner too. I'm a foundation member of APC, but I wasn't a foundation member of the PDP, and my own being in PDP actually was to make sure that we do what we need to do in Kaduna State so that the so-called governor there doesn't have his way. So we did the best we could as far as that is concerned. We joined forces. But to me, emergence of a southerner as a president is a good thing. And I think it is also good for national unity. And this unconventional laws should be respected for the interests of the unity of the country. And that is my own belief.
Fair enough. So, two more questions before we finish for today. I want to ask you about governors. You've been a victim of one, that's Governor Rufai Adela. Do you think the way our democracy is going, do you think governors are too powerful? Because it does look like, senators, we have three arms of government: legislature, we have the legislature, judiciary, and the executive. Now, it does look like the executive have captured the legislature, both at state and federal level. Now, it's also clear that even the judiciary have now been captured. So, for people that have been senators like you and who clearly are loved by their people and could not return to power because the governor of the day in that state says no, because we don't think alike, you don't see things my way, I can't control you and all that. Do you think that's good for our democracy going forward? Because most of these governors, like you rightly said, after 8 years, they still go back to the Senate. So how do we handle these governors, these ever powerful, some of them even remote party chairmen? Is that good for our democracy? Is there a way out of it?
Well, let me tell you this. The governors are the most powerful politicians in the country since 1999, because they give themselves enormous powers and they have it. A governor decides who is going to be the chairman of political party in the state and who are going to preside over the state. So the party belongs to the governor there. The governor nominates commissioners. The governor dictates who is going to be Speaker of House of Assembly. The governor says the name of who is going to be a minister at the federal cabinet. The governor does everything. And when you have a weak state assembly, the governor is almost like a king. So when they are in power as governors, they forget the transience of power. They want everything. They want state police to be able to arrest people. They want state prison. They want to have a state independent commission where they can declare themselves as winners of all the local government councillorship and chairmanship position. So they want so many things. But where the problem comes in, and again, Where the problem comes in is that they also want a state judicial council, not a national judicial council. They want the courts and everything to be on their control. But what they forget is the transience of power. If a governor has all these powers, what becomes if tomorrow you are out of power and your opponents become a governor, or the person you think is your own loyalist now betrays you and turn against you? Where will your power be? That is why you see most governors, when they're in power, they want state police, because they don't want a federal police where the commissioner of police has to confirm, has double masters with the IG and then the governor. They want a state commissioner of police that will dictate, that they will tell him, go and arrest A, go and do this, go and do this. Now, it's when they are out of power, now they start thinking that a governor is supposed not to be, and that you need to have an independent autonomy for judiciary, autonomy for SAT. So they want so much powers when they are in charge, and then they want the opposite when they are out of power. This is the problem. These problems you see happening when governors are tired of finishing their tenure. They think of a successor who has two qualities. One is one that will cover their track, and second, one that will do their bidding for the next 4 to 8 years. And then if you see a problem coming up, is whenever they are to try to assert some form of independence for themselves. This is where you have problem. So as for me, I can say that in all honesty, I want a situation where judiciary will be autonomous, State House of Assembly will be autonomous. That will give them some authority and power and control the activities and powers of these governors for democracy at least to flourish at the state level.
Fantastic. We have been talking to Senator SHEHU SANI, yes, Nigerian former senator and author, playwright, and human rights activist. He's been to prison for democracy. He has always been true to power. He's close to those that are in power, but he says it the way it is. That's what we do at Atlanta Discourse. We bring every scholar that says it the way it is. That's what we go for, just the fact. We have been discussing failed state, collapsed state, weak state, causes and indicators. Nigeria as a focal point. The senator has profound solution. He has said, well, we have gone further south. Things are really, really bad, and we might not be able to cover up for too long. There's hunger in the land. There's so much going on. A nation that cannot conduct a free and fair election is near to collapse. And when you're near to collapse, it's a recipe for disaster. Senator, before you go, do you have any message of hope for Nigeria that are listening to you? That we have Nigerians all over the world, in all the 7 continents of the world listening to you. Things are not going too well. The diaspora contingent are not particularly happy. Those at home are not very happy. There are debts upon debts. Today we learned our debt is about 87 trillion. So we really don't know. The ship of state sometimes seems rudderless. Even when it seems there's a cost, it doesn't look like it's well charted. So do you have any message of hope for Nigerians?
Yeah, my message is that we should remain optimistic and determined to take back our country and chart it for the future. Nigeria is a great country. We have great people, great talents, great potentials. We have the resources, and I believe we have the future. Our problem is simply the kind of leaders that we have been having over the years. The very time we have a generation of leaders with focus, with vision, that are incorruptible and determined, this country is unstoppable. You can see the country is so blessed. If Nigerian churches dominates the world in terms of evangelical preachings and so many things, Nigerian banks dominate the continent. You go to Congo, you go to Uganda, you go to Kenya, you see Nigerian banks. And in the northern part of the country, can you imagine Nigerian Muslims beating Arabians in terms of Quranic recitation? And we have some of the best clerics who will even excel in so many things. Some of the best students that emerge in the world today in sciences, technology, and humanities are all Nigerians. So I believe this is a country that is waiting for a leader that will harness its potentials for its greatness. So the very fact that evil seems to be triumphing now does not mean that it will continue to be forever. So the rich potentials we have and the resourcefulness of our own country and our own people are our own assets. And I think we should remain optimistic. If this democracy is not working, we should reset it in such a way that we should do everything possible to fight them. Next time, those who, men of good conscience and vision, knows that power cannot be handed over to them just like that. They have to fight and struggle for it. And these people you are seeing in position of authority or power, they may for outward times you see them so strong, so impenetrable, and cannot be dislodged, but it's not so. There is nothing that numbers of numbers cannot do. We are a faithful nation. We are a nation that have defied all logics of all pessimism. Many people go to bed thinking Nigeria will collapse the next day, and you see us moving. So I think my message is that we should remain hopeful and determined and continue to fight until we get our country back.
Thank you, sir, for attending to us at Atlanta Discuss. It's your first time. I'm sure it won't be the last time. There's so much to discuss on Project Nigeria, especially next year. Next year does look like it's going to be a very, very strategic year for Nigeria. Like we say, we serve as a bridge between developing and the developed world. We embrace art, politics, and faith-based issues. We give a voice to the unheard. We balance the information equation. So to our listeners, to our viewers, wherever it may be, we thank Senator SHEHU for coming to Atlanta Discuss. This is the final in our series of weak state, collapse state, and failed state, the causes and indicators Nigeria as a focal point. One thing is synonymous with all our three guests is that the office of the citizen has to wake up. Yeah, the citizen's office, that's the people. The citizen, people should not abdicate their responsibility. And when you talk citizen, you're talking the activists, you're talking voters, you're talking students, you're talking citizens in general. I mean, they should not allow the criminal, the bad people, the bad leaders to emerge. Because even the process of election itself will be manipulated if the citizens do not put a satellite on how it is working. Once again, Senator Sonny, thank you for coming to Atlanta Discuss. Next week, we'll be here with another very great and fantastic topic. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Thank you, sir.